I woke up feeling lost, but just 20 minutes of motivation transformed my day. The shroud of night clung to me, heavy and suffocating. I tossed and turned, eyes bloodshot, heart racing. Morning light peeked through the curtains, but it felt like darkness wrapped around my mind. The world outside was waking up, but inside, everything was frozen. I could almost hear the ticking clock, each second reminding me of all I hadn't done. I stared at my phone. The screen flickered to life. I was surrounded by reminders of my failures, missed deadlines, unreturned messages, faces that faded from memory. Memories echoed in my mind, like ghosts whispering doubts. The silence was piercing. My breathing quickened. I could feel a lump in my throat threatening to spill out all my fears. Just get up, I told myself, my voice shaky. But it felt like the weight of the universe was pinning me down, fingers trembling as they reached for the blanket that felt too warm, too comforting. I longed to escape the feeling, but how? The night before, I had stumbled across a video about finding motivation. The speaker's voice, raw and electric, ignited something inside of me, a flicker of hope. Change your life in just 20 minutes. It promised. So there I was, stuck between walls of panic and a glimmer of clarity. Could it really take only a few minutes to shift the course of my day? Cautiously, I pushed the blanket aside, and my bare feet pressed against the cold wooden floor. It sent a shiver through me, grounding me in reality. I craved something different. I craved change. But then I hesitated, the fear creeping back like shadows at dusk. What if I failed again? I took a deep breath, forcing my body to move. My mind raced. The haunting memories of loss and disappointment tried to drag me back, but I refused to succumb. Each step toward my phone felt like a tiny rebellion. My hand shook as I selected the video, the screen melting away into vibrant colors. The speaker's passionate words filled the silence. You have the power to change everything. Time fell away as I listened, captivated by the words that seemed to call me. Suddenly, it didn't feel so impossible. There were tales of resilience, stories that pierced through my doubts. I envisioned my own story intertwining with theirs, an adventure waiting to be written. My heart pounded. I could almost taste the excitement that lay ahead. The fear was still there, but now it felt smaller, reduced to a whisper. Life is yours for the taking, echoed in my ears. I could feel something shift. The spell of paralysis I had been under cracked ever so slightly. Hope shimmered like a faint star in an endless night. But just as I was about to leap into action, a loud crash rang out from the living room, pulling me back into the shadows. What was that? My heart raced again, an unsettling thrill coursing through me. I felt the cold sweat on my palms as I stood frozen at the edge of my bedroom, uncertainty rising in my chest. Was it just the wind? Or something far worse lurking in the corners of my reality? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As I edged cautiously toward the living room, the chaotic symphony of my own heartbeat drummed in my ears. Each step felt monumental, weighted with trepidation. The shadows of the hallway stretched long and uncertain, and I arrived at the threshold only to find the source of the noisy, a toppled stack of books, scattered pages fluttering like wounded birds across the floor. Relief washed over me, but it was fleeting. I bent down to gather the mess, feeling a sting of familiarity in the pages. They were remnants of a time when words felt alive, before the world shrank around me. Ancient dust coated the spines like forgotten dreams. I was submerged in a memory, a time when I wouldn't have hesitated to invite a friend over to share stories and coffee. Now, I felt a dissonance hanging in the air, an echo of connection lost. As I knelt there, a choking wave of vulnerability swept over me. Could I ever rediscover the person who thrived in the warmth of companionship? Or was that joy so buried beneath my fears that it would never surface again? The thought felt like a cruel vice tightening around my chest. Then, unexpectedly, I heard a soft knock at the door, a gentle interruption that froze my breath. I stood up slowly, heart still racing with uncertainty. Who could it be? The last close friend I had, Jenna, had distanced herself, leaving me with silent stretches of time to fill with self-doubt. Cautiously, I approached the door, hesitating to grasp the cold metal knob. With a deep exhale, I turned it, and the door creaked open. To my surprise, it was Mrs. Hargrove, my elderly neighbor, standing there with a warm smile and a tray of freshly baked cookies. It was an act of kindness that surprised me more than I anticipated. "Thought you might like some," she said, her voice warm and comforting, like a sunbeam breaking through clouds. Her silver hair glistened in the light, and her soft eyes held a knowing kindness. It felt surreal, and for a moment, my defenses crumbled under her heartfelt gesture. "Thank you, Mrs. Hargrove," I replied, my own voice catching with emotion. "Are you all right, love?" she asked, peering into my eyes with a depth that revealed her concern. Somehow, her presence felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. There was something inherently comforting about her. I nodded, though the truth felt too heavy to share. She stayed there for a moment longer, her gaze steady and compassionate, as if she could see through the surface, right into the tangled knots of my heart. "Sometimes it helps to have company," she suggested gently, glancing toward the living room. "I remember a time when I was feeling lost too. It's hard to find your way alone." The veil of vulnerability enveloped me. Her words reached parts of me that had been dormant for so long. As we stood there, the soft aroma of cookies mingled with the bittersweet heaviness of my emotions. I felt a tugging memory of laughter shared over a simple dessert, and something tiny inside me began to stir. "Would you like to come in for a moment?" I found myself asking, surprised by my own willingness. Vulnerability often felt like a steep cliff, but Mrs. Hargrove's kindness acted as a rope, strengthening my resolve to take just one small step forward. She entered, setting the tray on the table. We settled on the couch, and I forced myself to breathe deeply, absorbing the lingering warmth that her presence brought. I watched her nibble on a cookie, and she caught me admiring her. "You know, dear," I once heard a little saying, "sometimes the smallest things take up the most room in your heart." Her voice wrapped around me like a gentle embrace, bringing with it an unexpected comfort that dulled the sharp edges of my fears. Just as the conversation began to unfurl, a knock rang again, this time sharp and demanding. It startled both of us, the atmosphere shifting in an instant. Who could that be? Mrs. Hargrove wondered, and my stomach dropped at the thought of facing another disturbance. I moved cautiously, the moments before opening the door stretching into eternity. As I opened it, I was confronted by a figure I never thought I'd see again. Jenna, her wide eyes filled with something like apology, a flicker of hope and fear tangled together. "I need to talk to you," she said, and the weight of the world shifted once more. My heart raced. Was this a chance for healing, or an unraveling of the tenuous progress I had just begun to make? The pulse of anxiety mixed dramatically with the tender warmth from Mrs. Hargrove's visit, leaving me standing on a precipice of uncertainty, looking into the unknowable depths of my past and the future that hung in the balance. As I stepped aside to let Jenna in, the thrumming of my heart became a chaotic symphony, this time accompanied by a nervous flutter in my stomach. Jenna hesitated just inside the threshold, her presence a stark contrast to Mrs. Hargrove's warm kindness. The living room felt both too small and overwhelmingly open, as if the walls themselves were leaning in, eager to catch every word. "I didn't mean to interrupt," she stammered, glancing at Mrs. Hargrove, who shifted her weight on the couch, sensing the tension that buzzed thickly in the air. "Oh, dear, I'll leave you two to chat," Mrs. Hargrove said, her voice laced with quiet understanding. She stood, leaving the cookies behind as a peace offering, a small gesture that I clung to amid my swirling emotions. "Nice to see you, dear," she added, giving me a supportive nod before she slipped out the door. Suddenly, the room felt unbearably silent, just the two of us, circling around the unspoken words that hung heavily between us. Jenna looked around the room, perhaps recalling fragments of laughter we once shared, or the countless late-night talks over piles of snacks. I wished to escape into those memories, yet here we were, marred by a gaping chasm of time and hurt. "Can we talk?" she asked finally, her voice almost a whisper as she again avoided my gaze. "About what?" I replied, my tone sharper than I intended. After all this silence, I was tired of tiptoeing around the painful truth. As her eyes met mine, I could see the remorse etched deeply within them, but it did little to contain the swell of pent-up emotion I felt. About everything, she said, finally crossing the threshold into my troubled space, the depth of her words drawing out a breathless silence. I've missed you, and I'm sorry for how everything ended. I wanted desperately for this moment to feel freeing, to let the hurt fade away, but it felt like opening a wound. I thought you'd forgotten about me, I replied, feeling my voice tremble. The nostalgia of our friendship clashed with the rawness of betrayal that I could never forget you. I was scared, she confessed, her resolve ebbing as she wandered deeper into my emotional landscape. There were times when I didn't know how to help you. I was worried for you, worried about saying the wrong thing. That silence you created hurt me more than you can imagine, I shot back, feeling the truth knotting in my throat. All those countless nights alone left me aching for her presence. I know. And I'm here now. I want to change that, she pleaded, stepping closer, vulnerability lining her features. Please, give me a chance to make it right. Behind her eyes, I saw sparks of hope battling against the shadow of doubt. Maybe I wasn't the only one who had suffered from silence. Maybe Jinnah, too, was grappling with her own shadows, the fear of intimacy mixed with kindness. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, to perhaps offer her an olive branch, an unexpected sound interrupted our fragile moment. A loud crash, followed by a splash. Did you hear that? I exclaimed, dread washing over me. For a fleeting moment, Jinnah and I both exchanged panicked looks before rushing toward the source of the noise, the kitchen. My pulse quickened. I could already envision chaos spilling out from within. The sink, I realized as we burst through the door. Water was spewing from a burst pipe, creating a small pool that rapidly expanded across the tiles. In an emotional frenzy, I turned to Jinnah, grabbed the towels. With a shared urgency, we fell into an instinctive rhythm, our earlier tensions pushed aside momentarily. We worked together, our histories tangled with each frantic towel wipe, dodging and diving amidst the spray. In that chaotic moment, it felt almost like old times, memories flickering to life before the hurt, before the silence. But as the water began to recede, reality surged back. The serious weight of our unresolved issues loomed larger than ever. Breathless, we stood in the damp kitchen, hands on our hips, faces drawn into uncertainty. That I didn't come over just to talk about the past, Jinnah said softly, wiping her forehead with the back of her hand. I have something I need to tell you. Something important. The gravity of her tone made my heart drop. What is it? My palms grew clammy, the air crackling with unexpressed tension. I found something out about you. Something that matters. Something unnameable flickered in her eyes, a revelation that could indeed change everything. My mind raced as I struggled to grasp the situation. What could she possibly mean? Before she could speak, the doorbell rang again, a sharp reminder of the world beyond us. This time, it felt like an intrusion, an ominous clap of thunder, pulling me back from the brink of understanding and plunging us both deeper into confusion. As I glanced towards the door, dread unfurled within me. What awaited on the other side of that threshold? In a world that felt all too fragile, would it bring the kind of revelation that could heal or simply deepen the rift? Sucked back into the spiraling uncertainty, I felt a single, consuming truth echo inside. Might have opened up my past, but the future was still a jigsaw missing pieces, and I was terrified to see how it all fit together. The doorbell echoed again, more insistent this time. I felt the air grow denser as the weight of anticipation pressed down on my chest. Jinnah's eyes darted toward the door, mirroring my own mix of curiosity and dread. Oh, you want me to get it? I asked, though part of me was unwilling to break the fragile tether we had just begun to weave between us with all the unseen strands of our shared past. And no, she said quickly. Let me. There was a determination in her voice that surprised me. Jinnah moved toward the door, her stride steady despite the tremor underlying her bravado. I hesitated for a moment, stepping back to observe, unsure if I wanted to be a part of whatever awaited us beyond the threshold. With a swift motion, she swung the door open, and my heart sank. In the doorway stood a tall figure cloaked in shadows, his features blurred by the late afternoon light that fell behind him. I could feel Jinnah's breath catch in her throat, the air suddenly thick with latent tension. "Hi, Jenna," he greeted, his voice smooth yet weighted like velvet draped over iron. My heart raced, the familiar cadence sending a spiraling shiver of recognition through me. It was Caleb, her older brother, back from his travels abroad. Jenna stiffened, her expression faltering. "What are you doing here?" she managed to say, but the mix of bewilderment and something deeper in her tone caught me off guard. "I had to come back. I found something I think you need to know," he replied, his eyes darting past her to meet mine with an unsettling intensity. "Now?" Jenna's voice wavered. "You just show up after months and expect me to welcome you in?" The tension between the three of us felt electric, and I stood frozen in place, unsure if I was a part of this unfolding drama or merely an unwelcome observer. The past carved its way into the present, and it became evident that Caleb was not here merely to reunite with his sister. "What do you mean?" Jenna pressed, her vulnerability instantly hardening into something defensive as she crossed her arms. Caleb took a step forward, his expression stern yet pained. "I heard about your situation, Jenna. You shouldn't have to carry this on your own." His gaze shifted uneasily. "I think it's about time you knew the truth." The truth. The words hung in the air as if they were charged with a forbidden power, woven into the very fabric of our tangled lives. Jenna blinked slowly, uncertainty blooming across her features. "What truth?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I spoke to Mom. She told me everything." His tone became softer, but the words landed like a stone, heavy with implications. A door that had been cracked open began to creak wider, threatening to let loose the secrets Jenna had buried, secrets that I could feel swirling in the undercurrents of this moment. Jenna's eyes glossed over. A flicker of disbelief crossed her face. "Mom?" she echoed, her voice trembling. "Everything about what?" "I can't say it here," Caleb replied urgently, glancing around as if the walls might overhear. "We need to talk somewhere private. It's about your father. It's bigger than just you and me." Jenna. I could feel the air prickling with the weight of the unspoken words dangling over us. Invisible chains binding Jenna in a past she had fought so hard to escape. Suddenly, the room felt warped, a surreal blend of emotions swirling around us: confusion, fear, anger, and that singular thread of hope began to fray under the strain. "I can't," Jenna replied, her voice breaking, and it was as if the room had narrowed, her body physically constricting against whatever tidal wave of truth was threatening to crash down upon her. "Let me help you," Caleb offered, his voice softening as he softened his posture, but my instinct florida tight, not of possessiveness and fear. "Just hang on a second," I said, stepping forward, reclaiming my place in the unfolding story desperately. "What does any of this have to do with me?" "Everything," Caleb said, his tone resolute. "It's more than just Jenna's life, and it's inadvertently tied to you." His eyes found mine, a dawning understanding etched deep within them. "You might not be aware, but the past is something that can't just be swept under the rug. Secrets have a way of coming to light." And there it was, the unraveling of everything I thought I understood, of the fragile ground upon which our lives were precariously perched. I could feel it, the lurking shadows growing bolder, ready to engulf us in their weight. The echoes of our histories intertwined, alive and restless. Jenna's hand trembled as she gestured at Caleb, her other hand clenched into a fist. "You don't get to come back and dictate my life, not after all these years." In that moment, amidst the rising tide of charged emotions, I knew we all stood on the precipice of something monumental, our fates braided together by unseen threads of a lurking reality. This revelation danced on the edge of calamity, and as I stared back at Jenna, my heart ached with the knowledge that the moment wasn't simply about lost friendships or estranged family members. It was a portal to an even darker abyss. Suddenly, I heard my phone buzz in my pocket. An ordinary sound amidst the chaos, but it felt like a siren reverberating with urgency, demanding attention. As I reached for it, Jenna's eyes widened, understanding dawning as she began to grasp the magnitude of what lingered in the air. "What is it?" she asked, her voice a mixture of fear and curiosity battling for dominance. With a heavy heart, I pulled the phone from my pocket. The notification made my stomach drop as I read the message. "We need to talk. It's about your father." The world narrowed to that screen, the words inscribed within igniting a cascade of questions. The end of one story, and the beginning of another, unraveling right before us as we stood at the crossroads of the past and the uncertain future. The room felt as though it could implode under the weight of all that remained unspoken. I could see Caleb's facade slipping, the cracks within him as wide as the chasm between Jenna and their shared history. I glanced at her, my mind racing. This was no longer just about the tension between the two siblings or the lingering specters of their family. Who sent that message? Jenna's voice shook, pulling me from my turbulent thoughts. Her fight-or-flight instinct had kicked in, and the fire in her eyes sparked anew, igniting a fierce defiance. "It's just a message," I said, attempting to mask my own dread. I understood better than anyone how words could sting and burn, especially when they tapped into the raw nerve of family and the secrets that splintered us apart. Caleb's intense gaze hardened as he stepped closer to Jenna, close enough to show the brotherly concern that had once flourished between them. "How did you even know about your father?" he pressed, narrowing his eyes at me. "What has he told you?" The question hung heavy, tainted with suspicion and the smoldering remnants of fraternal loyalty. I could feel Jenna recoil, left teetering at the edge of confusion, as I grappled with how much of our shared story I could reveal without adding fuel to this already raging fire. "I didn't know anything until just now," I admitted, my voice steady despite the maelstrom swirling around us. "But we can't just ignore it. If your father is involved, Jenna, it changes everything." Her disbelief was palpable, the lines of her face etched with doubt. "No one can change what happened. We can't go back," she muttered, her voice tinged with an anxiety that belied her defiance. "But what if I started?" But she cut me off. "No. You don't get it. You don't know the damage he's caused, the manipulation, the lies. I don't even want to think about him." Her fists clenched tighter, trembling under newfound resolve. In the silence that stretched between us, I saw the small flicker of vulnerability behind her fierce exterior. Jenna was a storm, an ocean of emotions tucked away beneath layers of fortified defenses. I wanted to reach for her, to anchor her against the reckless tides of the past. But as Caleb loomed closer, the distance between us felt insurmountable. "That I came back for you," Caleb insisted, his voice a mixture of urgency and tenderness. "I wish I could tell you everything at once, but you have to trust me. There are pieces of our past that you haven't considered. The past isn't finished with us yet." Jenna's expression flickered between anger and a dawning understanding of the gravity of his words, like a shattered mirror reflecting bits of clarity through the chaos. I could sense her heart racing at the mention of their father, a name that was spoken in hushed tones, shrouded in shadows. "Why now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why would Mom finally share the truth?" Caleb drew in a breath, so deep it seemed to steal the light from the room. "Because we're running out of time," he replied. "I learned that he's looking for you, Jenna. Before she passed, Mom threatened to reveal everything. He wants to stop her, doesn't want you to know. She was afraid he'd come for you." My heart raced, the implications of his words piercing the fog surrounding our lives. This wasn't just about their damaged family or the buried secrets, but an active threat that hung over Jenna like a dark cloud. "Come for me," Jenna echoed, her voice shaking, while the reality of her father's return settled like a chilling weight upon us. "What does he want?" Caleb's gaze softened, the anger fizzled as he stepped back, giving Jenna space. "I don't know, but it has to do with the legacy. He wants to control a legacy he believes you should inherit. You're not just some abandoned child to him. You are the piece of the puzzle he can't afford to lose." I sensed the shift in Jenna. The distant flicker of hope and empowerment now flickered and faltered. "I don't want anything from him. I never wanted anything," she declared fiercely. "And yet," Caleb replied softly, "what if you have no choice?" Before Jenna could respond, my phone buzzed in my pocket again, the ordinary sound feeling impossibly loud and intrusive. Almost instinctively, I pulled it out, the sudden jolt of anxiety coursing through me like an icy wind. The notification was a reminder my own father had planned to visit today. A looming confrontation, one I thought I'd have prepared for, but now felt unprepared to face. "What is it?" Jenna's eyes caught mine, and I felt the surreal limits of our intertwining realities press heavily against me. I hesitated, the weight of unspoken truths threatening to unravel. "My daddy's coming here." The moment was an emotional cliffhanger, a tether pulled taut, ready to snap. The doors of revelation had begun to swing open, spilling the past into our present, and shadows loomed closer, waiting to consume the fragile bonds we'd tried to forge. And in that suffocating silence, one thing became devastatingly clear. Some truths could dismantle everything we thought we knew, and the darkness of our past was only just beginning to unwrap itself around us. The air in the room thickened, a heavy stillness punctuated only by the relentless thump of my heart. Jenna's wide eyes and Caleb's tense posture bore silent witness to the fragile threads that bound us amid a storm of uncertainty. "I need to see my dad," I murmured, my voice weak and uncertain. The revelation felt like stepping into a trap I had unknowingly set for myself. The tension in the room seemed to ripple with every unvoiced concern, every unheld emotion swirling around us. "What? No." Jenna's response was immediate. A flash of alarm crossed her features as she stepped back, disbelief mingling with concern. "Have you lost your mind?" It's complicated," I stammered, a torrent of self-doubt assaulting my resolve despite knowing how much was at stake. "I always thought I could avoid this conversation, but now it feels necessary." "Necessary?" Caleb interjected, his brow furrowed in perplexity. "You think confronting him is going to bring clarity? He's not the answer, not for anyone." "This isn't just about me," I insisted, desperate to bridge the abyss yawning between us. "He might know something about our fathers, about the messages, about why they both came back, why Jenna's father is suddenly interested in her life again. This is bigger than us." "You're playing with fire," Caleb warned, his voice low and serious, yet a flicker of understanding gleamed within his eyes, letting me know he wasn't entirely dismissing my fears. "Look, you don't have to go through this alone," Jenna said, stepping closer, her defiance giving way to a hint of vulnerability. "If you're going in, I'm coming with you." I was almost taken aback by her offer. It was laden with a myriad of implications. "But what about your dad? If he's truly looking for you, that's exactly why I need to be there," she said, savoring her conviction with each word. "If he wants something from me, I won't let him dictate our lives anymore." The strength in her resolve sparked something in me, igniting the tiniest sliver of hope. Perhaps together, we could unravel the tangled threads that linked our families. "I want to know who my father really is," Jenna pressed, her voice now steady and purposeful. The fire in her eyes burned brighter as she glanced at Caleb for reassurance. He hesitated, torn between protecting his sister and acknowledging the bravery in her venture. Finally, his shoulders relaxed, surrendering to the shared burden that groaned between us. "Then we do this together," he affirmed, camaraderie bridging the fractures left by their past. "But we have to be prepared for whatever the truth might unearth." As we gathered our thoughts, I felt the flickering hope amidst a tapestry of turmoil. We gritted our hearts against the impending confrontation, forming an encircled front, an alliance against the threat that loomed like dark clouds on the horizon. But as anticipation built, a sudden noise from outside disrupted our thoughts, a metallic clang that echoed through the hall, cutting its way into the silence that had settled like a thick fog. We exchanged anxious glances, our collective pulse quickening. "What was that?" Jenna asked, her posture tightening instinctually. "I don't know," I admitted, dread creeping in through my skin like ice water. It had come from the front door. Remembering that my father was on his way, a knot formed in my stomach. Before I could digest the implication, the door creaked open, and a gust of wind swept through as a shadow loomed in the threshold. My breath caught as a figure stepped inside, a familiar face that sent shivers down my spine. "Hello, sweetheart," my father greeted, his voice smooth but cold, a stark contrast to the dappled warmth of the room. In that moment, the fragile alliance we had forged felt as though it might shatter around us, the past breaking free from its confines to engulf us all. My heart raced dangerously, panic rising like bile as I considered the ramifications of his sudden appearance. There were so many unsaid words that hung like jagged knives in the air between us. Reckoning awaited us, and as I gazed into his eyes, I feared the truth would only fracture us further. "Caleb, Jenna," my father continued, his eyes glimmering with something I could neither decipher nor trust. "We need to talk. There's much you don't understand." Hope faltered under the weight of his words, and in that instant, the delicate web of trust we'd begun to weave thinned dangerously. There, Beneath the surface, darkness beckoned, and I could feel the shadows closing in, ominously promising that this was only the beginning of a much deeper unraveling. The air crackled with tension as my father's eyes roamed over us, taking in the scene with a strange mixture of curiosity and control. Caleb's stance shifted protectively, inching closer to Jenna as if he could shield her from whatever dark revelation was brewing behind my father's inviting facade. My heart raced, the weight of unanswered questions pressuring me like a coiled spring ready to snap. "Hey, you really think it's best for you to be here?" Caleb challenged, his voice firm but a hint of vulnerability painted his words. "You walked away. You can't just stride back in like nothing happened." "Caleb, please," I interjected, my voice barely above a whisper yet thick with pleading. "Let him speak." A decision loomed overhead, an unspoken accord that tied us all together in the moment, whether we wanted it or not. My father's lips curled into a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Smart boy," he replied, his tone condescending. "He'll clarify things for you. The situation is far more complicated than any of you realized." He leaned against the doorframe. The shadows danced across his face, hiding the emotions I both craved and dreaded to see. I wanted to scream, to demand answers to the thousands of whys that flooded my mind. Why had he abandoned us? Why now? But all that came out was a hollow whisper of a lifetime of bottled feelings, a plea for explanations. "What situation?" Jenna asked, her voice steady despite the tremor in her fingers, each tiny movement betraying the tempest that raged within her. "What are you talking about?" "Your father's," he trailed off, surveying our faces, gauging our reactions before plunging back into the fray. They were part of something they didn't fully understand. And neither did I, at least, not until recently. His gaze settled on me with a heavy deliberation. "That's why I came back. Something greater than our past has drawn me here." "Greater?" Caleb spat, anger rippling through him. "Everything you left behind. The silence. The hurt. How dare you?" The rawness of his words hung thick in the air like smoke, choking the fragile atmosphere. "Enough," my father said sharply, and for a moment, the chill of authority swept over us, silencing us, stripping away our bravado. "You'll learn soon enough that just because I vanished doesn't mean I wanted to. There are forces at play that far exceed our understanding." A beat passed, and I felt the surge of a wild, turbulent wave within me, frustration, confusion, and shame churning like a storm. "Then tell us," I demanded, my resolve hardening. "If you're going to drag us into this, if we are supposed to understand our fathers and you then tell us everything. Stop hiding behind metaphors and shadows." He hesitated, a flicker of something unfurling within his guarded expression, a moment where real acknowledgement could spark. And then just like that, it faded, replaced by a well-rehearsed mask. "Your father learned secrets he shouldn't have. Secrets that put him and you at risk," my father said at last, each word measured and careful, as if they were volatile enough to explode at any moment. The room's atmosphere thickened with every syllable, twisting the small hope I had begun to muster into a tight coil of anxiety. "To protect you," he continued, his gaze drifting off into the distance for a moment, as if he were searching for clarity in a fading memory. "I had to keep certain things hidden. The messages you found, they're only the beginning. There are people out there who would do anything to silence the truth." Dread seeped into the cracks of my sanity. I watched as Jenna's shoulders sagged. She looked ready to crumble under the weight of her inheritance, the revelations pouring over us like an icy wave. "What truth? What enemies?" she whispered, struggling against the tide of despair crashing against her defenses. But we didn't have time for clarity. The palpable wretchedness accumulated, filling the room like stale air. A loud crash reverberated from outside, breaking through our cloud of confusion. It jolted us like a lightning strike. Our heads snapped toward the window, where three dark figures were slowly making their way up the path toward the house. Instinct kicked in. "We need to leave," Caleb urged, but my body felt heavy, anchored by fear and disbelief. My father's smirk widened, a predator ready for the hunt. "Now, we're in even deeper waters. The truth doesn't just reveal itself to anyone. You'll have to fight for it." His words collided with the rising panic in the room, resonating with harsh finality. And before we could process our next move, the front door swung wide open, spilling a rush of cold air sealed with the scent of danger. A chilling voice cut through, smooth but laced with malice. Did we miss the party? I felt the ground shift beneath me, and as I turned toward the intruders, raw urgency tore through my limbs. There was no turning back now. What lay ahead could either sever our fates or bind us together in unbreakable ways. The catalyst of truth was upon us, but at what cost? The air in the room was thick with the scent of unease, a pungent reminder that danger lingered just beyond the threshold. The dark figures that had appeared on our doorstep were framed by the fading light of the evening, their silhouettes almost ghostly against the warmth of the interior. They entered like smoke curling around a candle, effortlessly extinguishing the flicker of hope we had clung to. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice a mixture of defiance and fear, the sting of the unknown tightening my throat. Yet, deep down, I wondered if I truly wanted to know the answer. "Just friends of your father," a tall figure said, stepping forward, his voice smooth but edged with a sinister undertone. He cast a quick glance at the smirk still hanging on my father's face, and I was struck by the unsettling familiarity in that gaze. It was a predator's gaze, one that had descended upon its prey with a chilling confidence. Caleb stepped closer to Jenna, his protective instinct almost palpable, grounding us in a reality where safety was just an illusion. I could feel the tension building between us like an electric current ready to snap. "Get away from my family," Caleb warned, his tone low and unwavering, yet I could hear his heart pounding in the silence. His resolve seemed a fragile shield against the impending threat, but it was all he had. "Family," the intruder echoed, a laugh that held no warmth slipping from his lips. "It seems the bonds of blood do little to shield you from the truth, don't they? Perhaps you'll understand soon enough." He turned his attention away, his gaze flitting to the other two figures, who were stepping into the room with a predatory grace. "What do you want?" I managed to ask, my breath hitching as uncertainty swirled in the air, heavy and foreboding. "Why are you here?" "Just a little conversation," he shrugged, a gesture far too casual for the circumstances, as if he were discussing the weather rather than encroaching on our lives with an ominous intent. "You're tangled in something much bigger than you realize. We need to unravel it together." "There's nothing for you here," my father asserted, his voice unwavering, yet I could see the subtle twitch at the corner of his mouth, a crack in his otherwise composed facade. "I will not let you speak to them. We both know that's not entirely true. There are pieces missing, and we can help you find them if you're willing to listen." The man's gaze was piercing, contemplating the weight of my father's words. He appeared to tower over us, a threat wrapped in a smile that couldn't mask the danger we faced. Suddenly, the fear in Jenna's eyes flared, shifting from one figure to another, seeking reassurance in the smallest gestures. It was palpable, consuming. My heart ached for her. This wasn't just about us anymore. It was about the legacy we were inheriting. Could we trust our past, or was it destined to drown us in darkness? "Enough," my father bellowed, stepping in front of us as though he could somehow shield us from the storm brewing behind those cold eyes. I could sense his desperation, the way he grasped at the remnants of his authority, but it only served to tighten the grip of tension in the room. The third figure leaned casually against the doorframe, his expression enigmatic, yet sharp, cutting through the air with a cavalier indifference. "No need to shout, friend. Word travels fast. Your little family saga has drawn the attention of many. Secrets rarely remain buried, especially ones tainted by betrayal." Caleb's grip on Jenna tightened as the reality of those words settled in like stones in our bellies. I exchanged a glance with him, desperate for some understanding in the chaos. "Betrayal? What do you?" I began, but my voice faltered as the magnitude of what he might reveal hung precariously in the air. "Your fathers," the man continued, "are directly tied to a series of betrayals that have rippled through our lives. Innocence has been lost. You're deeper in this than you know." Behind him, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A shadow bolted down the hallway, too quick for me to recognize. "What was that?" I blurted out, panic gripping my gut as I turned. "They won't escape the truth. It often finds a way back," the stranger said smoothly, but even his stone-cold demeanor couldn't conceal the fear that ignited a spark within me. There was something lurking in the shadows, and I felt it now more than ever, a connection twined through our bloodlines that even we couldn't fully comprehend. A faint sound echoed from the kitchen, a soft thud followed by a quick scuffle. My heart raced as I took a hesitant step toward the source of the noise. The only thing I could think of was that maybe, just maybe, a truth was about to break open. Whether I was ready for it or not, as I drew closer, a chilling voice interrupted my thoughts, filling the doorway between us and the unknown. Open the door, dear sibling. It's time we had our reunion. At that moment, the realization crashed over me like a tidal wave. My true identity was at stake, revealing itself in the most shocking way possible, and with it, all the hidden threads of connection began to tighten around me. There would be no turning back. Please, I cried, turning to my father, desperation crackling in my voice. Don't let them in. I can't deal with this right now. But the echo of his silence filled the void. As the door swung open slowly, a piece of the puzzle fell into place, a revelation I had never been prepared for, one that threatened to unravel everything I thought I understood about loyalty, betrayal, and love. The door creaked open wider, the faded wood giving way to an imposing figure that emerged from the shadows. My breath caught in my throat as recognition washed over me in waves of disbelief and confusion. A face I had never seen before, yet one I felt intrinsically connected to, a mirror reflecting my own uncertainty, but layered with a history I had yet to unearth. Welcome home, the newcomer said, a sardonic smirk stretching across their lips. There was an unsettling quality to their voice, as if they bore the weight of secrets and sorrows I was not yet ready to face. Who are you? I stammered, stepping back instinctively, searching for the protection of my father, who remained astoundingly silent, his battle-worn features taut with something I couldn't decipher. I told you. Sibling, the figure purred, their eyes glimmering like shards of glass. It's time for us to catch up. Isn't it amusing how fate works? You were always surrounded by half-truths, but I'm here to illuminate the darkness. Enough. Caleb interjected, positioning himself between the figure and me, his body tense as a coiled spring. You won't lay a finger on her. Whatever games you're playing, this stops now. Protective, aren't we? They remarked, feigning disinterest. But can you protect her from the truth? Can anyone? You're all tied up in this web of deceit woven long before you understood the stakes. Leave us alone. Jenna called out, her voice breaking through the waves of confusion to engrave her defiance into the air. I admired her strength, but dread clouded my thoughts. What if this was all just the beginning of a larger darkness we couldn't grasp? Ignoring Jenna's plea, the newcomer who had somehow claimed the title of my sibling stepped forward, an insidious charm cloaking their every motion. The safety you cling to, it's just an illusion. Your family isn't who they say they are. Doesn't that intrigue you? There are questions to answer, secrets to be unraveled. I felt the world closing in around me, as if the air itself bore the weight of all I had ever known. What do you mean? I whispered, a tremor anchoring my voice as I dared to delve deeper. Tell me, how much do you really know about your father's past? Or about the decisions that have brought you to this moment? Their words sliced through the air, each syllable laden with venom. I glimpsed the shadow of my father's past flicker across his face, a struggle etched into his features that mirrored my own swirling turmoil. Stop it! I cried out, my heart pounding as I glared at this stranger masquerading as my kin. You don't know me. You don't know us. Oh, but I know you more than you ever realized, they retorted, the smirk unwavering, a facade disguising danger intertwined with a sinister allure. A shudder racked through the room, a malignant energy that curled around us like mist. The tension was palpable, thickening with every moment. I could sense my family's fear coiling around me, their uncertainty compounding my own. Just listen, the newcomer urged, please, soaked in malicious intent. Or you will regret it. The truth has claws. It claws at you until you can't breathe. Suddenly, their words struck with haunting clarity. My mind raced back to the shadow I had caught flickering down the hallway moments ago. What were you doing in the kitchen? Their lips curled into a knowing smile, eyes flashing with something darker. You're not ready to know all the pieces yet. But trust me, I'll help you assemble them, they assured, their voice smooth enough to lure me with false promises. It's time for you to see the world through my eyes for once. There's so much you're missing. The gravity of their statement settled heavily in the air. My heart raced, and I felt the pull between yearning for truth and the terror of what it might reveal. What if everything I had known was nothing but a facade waiting to crumble down around me? Before I could respond, the tall figure from earlier unexpectedly interjected. Enough of this charade. We don't have time for emotional entanglements. His voice was sharp, cutting through the heavy atmosphere. We must have those documents. Your family thinks they can keep them hidden, but you'll help us get them. You'll see. The key to everything lies within your reach. What documents? I blurted, struggling to keep my composure. The handsome stranger with the predatory gaze leaned in, his voice lowering to a whisper, as if sharing a sacred dark prophecy. The ones that outline the truths your parents have buried. Family legacies and debts, trials that have long waned. But consider yourself the newest player in this game. You want clarity? You'll have it if you're willing to face the storm. Everyone here is a pawn, including you. I stumbled backward, nearly losing myself to despair. My family's secret histories and betrayals were clawing their way to the surface, threatening to take me down with them. A surge of courage welled within me, battling my instincts to flee. If I help you, what will become of my family? It was the most difficult question I'd ever voiced. My heart felt as heavy as the truth suspended in that room, and their laughter twisted my insides. Ah, the newcomer said, eyes glittering with fervor. That's the beauty of it, dear sibling. You won't have to decide for long. Because soon, everything will change, and when it does, your choices will be made for you. With uncertainty and dread swirling in my chest, I battled the reality that the true chaos was only beginning. Hope flickered dimly in the crack of my resolve, but the shadows loomed larger and darker, as if to consume us all. Just wait for a moment, I murmured softly, almost to myself, as the walls closed in, each heartbeat a reminder of the choice I had to face. Everything was about to shift, and I felt the frail strands of my identity trembling on the verge of becoming undone. And as I glanced at my father, I saw something awaken in his Gazia battle that had only just begun, with stakes higher than I dared to imagine. The truth was coming, and with it would come reckoning like we'd never known before. The room was saturated with tension, each breath heavy with unspoken fears and tentative hopes. I stood there, feeling the weight of all that had been said, all that lay ahead of us. The existence of this newcomer, revealing themselves as my sibling, shattered the very foundation of my reality. My thoughts whirled like autumn leaves caught in a tempest, and yet, amidst that chaos, a single thread of determination anchored me. It was time to take control. Stop, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I've had enough of lies. If you have information about my family, about what's truly going on, I want to know everything. Caleb shifted, his protective nature surfacing again, but as I turned to him, I could see the conflict brewing beneath his expression. Jenna pulled in a sharp breath, her own fears creeping back in. But this was not the moment to second-guess. Fate had thrust us into the storm together, and I could feel the flicker of resolve in the air around us. Fine, the figure smirked, not showing a hint of regard for our straining ties. If you're bold enough to plunge into the depths, why not start at the surface? The documents I mentioned contain the history of your father's a convoluted mess of deals struck, alliances formed, and betrayals that have rippled through time. They spoke. I felt the shadows around us gather tighter, a dark cloud suffocating every glimmer of light. I understood now that this was more than just a chance encounter. It was a battle for the reins of our destinies, a family web whose threads had tangled and twisted for far too long. What do you mean, a mess? I pressed, urgency lacing my words. What kind of deals? What have our fathers done that brings you here? The newcomer's eyes glinted, and for a fleeting moment, I could see the tangled mess of their own motivations that danced just beneath the surface. Your fathers were involved in something they thought it could save us all. But ultimately, it led to distrust, division, and loss. Do you really think they held the power? They were but pawns in a much larger game. Your father, they nodded towards my father whose silence was now punctured by a tinge of pain, made choices that built walls around his family. But those walls don't just protect us, they imprison us too. The loss of trust among our blood means we're sprawling in shadows, trapped by what they've failed to disclose. That I glanced at my father, whose sorrowful gaze bore the weight of centuries-old decisions that had echoed through our lives without our understanding. As the fear swelled in my chest, I turned my attention back to the stranger. What are you saying? Are you telling us we're in danger? Danger lies in ignorance. Dear sibling, came their eerily calm reply. But safety, however fragile, can be found in facing the shadows together. You must all reach out and break these chains if you can survive the storm that's coming. A flicker of understanding ignited within me. Then help us. If we're going to unearth these secrets, we'll do it together. Not as enemies, but as family. The air shifted subtly in the wake of my declaration, and I sensed their unease ripple across the fringes of their composure. You think unity is easy? They questioned, narrowing their eyes. You're all tangled in history you can't begin to comprehend. Trust is built through truth, and our legacies are full of shame. With that, I turned to Caleb and Jenna, feeling the weight of my burgeoning resolve press heavy in my chest. We can't run away from this anymore. We need to stand together or risk losing everything: our family, our history, ourselves. Caleb took a deep breath, something firm and resolute wove into his feature. If we're all tied together by this, then let's write our own story. I won't let us disappear into our father's demons. Together, Jenna echoed softly. Let's find the truth. It's time we redefine what family means. As we joined hands, a shockwave coursed through the room, shaking loose shards of uncertainty. And then, almost imperceptibly, I felt the pull shift around me as the air thickened with purpose. The stranger studied us, their expression morphing from condescension to cautious intrigue. Brave enough to challenge the past yet? Very well, then. I can guide you to the truth, but understand this. It comes at a cost. What kind of cost? I whispered, dread creeping in again. Your choices will lead you into unexpected places. Prepare for revelations that will challenge your understanding of loyalty, love, and blood. You might end up losing what you've always known. But remember, sometimes to find what you're looking for, you must first face the darkness that awaits. It was all too much. But there was a strange sense of comfort in the unity of our joined hands. If we were to face the shadows together, what else could the light reveal? As the weight of their words sank in, a low rumble echoed from outside. Vibrating through the walls, a storm was on the horizon, both literal and metaphorical. I braced for the tempest, knowing the path forward would demand courage and honesty. It would require me to confront everything I feared. I turned to my father, searching his gaze for any semblance of understanding. He looked at me with a mixture of pride and sorrow, one final plea hanging unspoken between us. Whatever happens, I said softly, tightening our grip, let's find our own truth. And I felt a shift within me when he nodded, for the first time, truly seeing me. Suddenly, the stranger interjected, breaking the moment. Follow me. They stepped back into the shadows, guiding us deeper into the unknown. As we left behind the remnants of our past, we moved towards a future forged by the choices we began making together, driven by the hope that we might still rewrite our family story, one filled with light rather than shade. And as we stepped forward, just as darkness fell upon us, I held on to the single, unwavering truth that enveloped might was time to reclaim our legacy. With each step into the unfolding mystery, I felt the chains cracking, the shadows receding, and the fires reigniting inside me. Determined, I turned back to look at Caleb and Jenna, their brave faces illuminated by a flicker of fading light. Together, we took one last breath before plunging into the darkness, ready to uncover the secrets that had long buried us alive. As I ventured into uncertain waters, a final thought echoed within me. The past may shape us, but it did not define us. We would write our own ending. And so we stepped boldly into the unfolding storm, united, unyielding, unbroken, ready to face whatever awaited us.